hopefully. The retitled Technical Difficulties Podcast, aka Best / Worst. Welcome back, everybody. We're hopefully, we'll see how this goes, if we can make this into a podcast that actually has new episodes that work. So cross your fingers, like Mason said, rub your rabbit's foot and see if this can work this time. But hope everyone's doing okay. What's that?
Yeah, I was going to tell you, we did have an idea that we thought would be fun, because that last episode we did was so much fun about the cereal. But since you were absent in the entire thing, and we lost your track, never to be recovered, we were thinking we could listen to it back in the podcast, and then you can do your best to like fill in the blanks,
like director's commentary.
Yes, like what you were thinking and what you must have said there, and then we could pause it and also revisit if we still agree. Like maybe some of us went and tried some of the things. Could be fun. Yeah. It would take like 3.5 hours because the show is already pretty long. But I don't know.
I think it would be good. I like
extended commentary.
Yeah,
the bonus.
Yeah. Is that's confirmed? The serial episode was like 3 hours. I mean, because that serial is.
No, I'm just figuring if we like pause it.
Oh, I see.
Add our own commentary.
Then people have been clamoring.
Commentary to the people long have been commentary.
They've been clamoring for that, so I think we should probably do that.
Right. I mean, they want to know what goes on behind the scenes. How does this magic happen?
I mean,
a lot of hard work.
The least we could do is give them a little insight.
Sent up to man.
Give the people what they want. So, we again, you have Joey, Mason, Sarah, myself, Kurt. Justin is off on a romantic getaway, I believe.
Yes.
So we are just us four. And so this week we are talking about starter jobs. So we made it kind of general, just not necessarily first jobs, but kind of the early jobs that you have when you're, heck, even kind of a tween into a teenager. Sometimes it's maybe those under the table jobs, and some are your real official first jobs according to the U.S. government. And just because I think there's there's definitely some ways to go there. So that's what we're looking at this time.
And I just wanted to say a sincere you're welcome to all of our fans who are maybe, it's summertime and they're coming out. They're thinking about their first job. And I think that we can give them some guidance, like all of our young fans.
Yeah, I mean, we have a big teen population that listens to this podcast. So
right.
I really feel like we're serving them. I mean, this is a kind of our homage to all our teens.
This is almost a PSA on first jobs.
That's right. Yeah.
They're going to be starting next couple of weeks here. Even now, I guess we're already into summer.
Yeah.
I mean, people could be starting them up now.
And Kurt can teach them some lessons about getting a job, and then before you even start, just changing it for a better job. Especially when your friend recommends you for a job, and you're like, actually, I'm going to quit.
I will say this. This is something that's been on my mind. Just thinking about the topic today, just kind of briefly thinking about it and what I was going to talk about. And there's been a definite paradigm shift in, people's first jobs generally are in like a customer service type of position where you're kind of placed in front of people for the first time in your life. I hear like drums in the background. Is that?
Yeah, that was me. I was adjusting.
Oh,
go for it.
And it's a customer service job, and the first thing you learn in a customer service job is that the customer is always right. It's drilled into you. Do not, do your best to go out of your way for the customer. The customer, no matter how angry the customer is, you're supposed to, be of service to them. I think there's been a shift away from that in these kind of entry level customer service jobs, to where now it's less about customer service. It's more about telling you where you can't go and touch and do what you can't do. It's a complete change in how we operate on a customer service level. Now you have people that are, in these positions, basically they're authoritarian figures in the store, and like you have to abide by their rules, and it's creating a kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, little bit of conflicts,
which is
in the
unfortunate
workplace.
because at this day and age, like you need to encourage people to go into a store to buy things.
Yeah.
So if you're making an unpleasant environment,
Let me give you a quick example. So I went camping last week or a couple weeks ago, and I went to REI to get a few things, right? And REI, you think, can we just call out company names? I mean, we could lose some sponsorships here, but REI, you think, when I think REI, I think, they have a certain expertise, they have a certain specialty, and I think pretty good customer service. So I walk in, I'm looking for a real specific thing, and I called beforehand to make sure that they had it. Drove to REI and walked in, and I'm walking around, and I'm, it's that awkward moment where I don't want to ask someone for help, but I want someone to come up to me. But then it goes on a little too long, and then eventually I just have to ask someone for help. So this young man's walking by me. He has an REI kind of shirt on, and I go, "Do you know where the tent poles are?" And he turns to me. He goes, "You picked the wrong guy. I work the cash register. I don't know." And I looked at him. I said, "That is not helpful at all." And I'm like, furthermore, I'm not going to shop here anymore because of just that experience. Because I was so pissed off about it. It made me so mad. And that's kind of it.
Joey, Oh no, go ahead.
Can I play devil's advocate?
I was just gonna say,
it sounds like that guy's kind of funny.
It is.
You
funny.
sound like an old man.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Joey turned into the old man that we're all gonna be like, yeah. And then on my first job, this guy yelled at me like, "You're that guy."
But I remember in that kind of environment that I would, if someone asked me a question, I would be like, I'd go out of my way to help that person. And yes, I do sound like an old man right now, but that kind of,
I will never bring my service back here again. I will not.
No, I didn't say that. No, this is my internal thinking. This is never said. No, I never said that.
Okay. I did you said it.
No, I did.
I'm writing an email.
No, I did.
Did you ask to talk to his manager?
Not at all. I just turned to him and in a very kind of confrontational way, I said, "That is super unhelpful," and just walked away. But I mean, like, come on. But anyway, I digress.
Right. Do they have tent poles?
It turns out they didn't. So it was like fuel on my fire. Like,
God.
Like they said they had it. I drove out there. I took half hour of my day to find a tent pole.
They did say they had it. I thought you went to a store and were like, "Can you tell me where I find the such and such?" And they're like, "I don't know."
Maybe I didn't articulate the story enough. I had called before I went. I said, "Do you have this specific 12-inch tent pole or whatever?" And they said yes, and I drove there. And then the first guy the guy told me, "I don't do that."
How does REI not have fucking tent poles?
Yeah,
REI. You know who's amazing? Any Mountain, the best outdoor store on the planet.
Nice.
Do we even have? We don't have one near us anymore, I don't think. Oh.
They're
Sponsored by Any Mountain. Don't shop at REI. Fuck REI. We did make that previous story up, but it's okay.
One of my first jobs was being a greeter at Brookstones, right? So Brookstones, it was a temp job. It was during the holidays. I mean, I had lots of jobs before that, but this is like a real, my first job at the mall. And I'm a greeter. And it's funny when I think about greeters back then, greeters would be like, "Hey, how's it going? Welcome." And you have to pitch a product. Like, we have this new Tempur-Pedic Swedish pillow, that was developed by the Space Shuttle Columbia scientists. Now you can now it's super soft and blah, blah, blah. Now those same greeters are telling you, you gotta go here. You can't touch that. Take your mask on, put your mask on. It's completely different. Pisses me off.
Like you've been yelled at by a lot of retail people lately. I don't know.
Sarah, I've gotten in more skirmishes. I wouldn't call them fights, but skirmishes over the last year with just people in retail establishments than ever in my life before. Because I cannot be told what to do. And when people tell me what to do, I have to say something.
I
don't like
that. That's a prototypical Joey.
Yeah.
That's one of your key tenets.
Yeah.
The more trivial it is, the worse it is.
And especially if it's just if the hypocrisy just slaps you in the face and you just think about how stupid it is. I get angry. But
Sarah, what was your very first job?
Yeah.
Oh,
the very first. I mean, well, very first.
Yeah,
and this
all the way back.
All the way back. This probably doesn't count, but I would like to say that I was a self-made entrepreneur. When my mom would get like bouquets of flowers, I would let them dry out, and then I would take the back of my dad's truck and turn it into a factory. And I would take our Kleenex and ribbon and my mom's perfume, and I would crumble the flowers up and make potpourri, little packets.
Oh.
I'd wrap the Kleenex and tie it, and I'd fill my wagon and go door to door and sell them for 10 cents.
Wow.
Business plan being that I didn't purchase
That's the
any
most
of the
feminine
items.
first job I've ever heard of.
I really thought about that. Like, I was like, I didn't have to purchase anything, so there are no costs off the top. I just took everything from my house, and then I don't know how much money I ever made, but I really loved it.
Frankly,
I know, right?
Yeah. 10 cents is a steal.
Was it really 10 cents?
Yeah, and then
potpourri.
my mom would get like Sweet Honesty from Avon. I don't know if you guys remember Avon. It was like
Avon lady.
It's like
yeah.
They deliver your makeup.
It was like the original multi-level marketing, right?
Yeah, and there'd be like a certain scent, and I was like, "This is good," and I just spray it into my little flowers, and so I was like door-to-door salesman. Very young though. I was really like 7, which is kind of weird to think about a 7-year-old now walking around by themselves selling things door to door, but
Is it weird? Is it weird?
CPS.
Is it weird? I feel like we've been jaded. I feel like this is a whole nother topic, but is it weird for kids to be independent and walking around? Is the world more dangerous than it was before?
No, I actually don't. I don't think it is.
No.
But I think from like most of the time, you're not going to see a 7-year-old walking around by themselves unattended.
True.
But no,
is
it actually more dangerous? Probably not. We were just more unaware before.
I think that's
now any single thing can happen anywhere, and everyone hears about it.
Everyone hears about, sees it. Yeah,
we were less exploited before than we are now.
Yeah.
Our fears.
People in my neighborhood freak out when Lincoln rides his bike around by himself.
It's so important for them, I think, to have that like sense of independence and that knowing that I can take care of myself and be responsible.
Exactly. I mean, I let my kids just kind of walk to their friend's house in the neighborhood, and I just pray that they look both ways when they cross the street, and I just hope that they do the right thing. But it's really important for their development just to get out there and be independent. I
do the same thing. I leave them home for a weekend with there's food in the fridge, and I leave plenty of litter in the box.
Exactly.
Kids can
We're learning. Yeah,
do it. You got a cell phone? Come on.
How about you, Mace?
What was your what was my first job?
Yeah.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Stepped on you. I think my first job was either, I can't remember which came first. It was either a paper route. So I had a paper route. And I think it's so strange. Paper routes
awful
are a bizarre thing. Like I was like 10 and then they don't really, I don't think it sinks in when you first get a paper route that you now have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning every day.
It may be the hardest job ever.
Every day. No days off, 7 days a week. And then there's going to be this pile of papers on your front porch. And there goes my camera. And can you guys see me? No. Great. And you've got to like put it in a bag and walk around the neighborhood and throw out these things in the middle, like basically what feels like the middle of the night. And
I think, Mace, just to add on to that, the worst part of that job is that they not only make you do that, but they make you chase down your own money. So you have.
That's what I was gonna say. That's the weirdest part. Like, you have to go knock on. What, they couldn't figure out how to send a bill to people. So you have to once a month. You got to walk around to each person, knock on their door, and collect $7 for their paper subscription. And if they don't answer, and then you don't get paid. And that's just like, you're like, sorry, kid. That's how you collect your money.
I can't. When you think about it, like how did that business model work? I mean, and maybe that's part of the reason why newspapers are having a hard time.
It's child exploitation. Like they know that kids making $2.50 an hour, they're okay with that because they can't get a job doing anything else. You're 12, 11 years old. So this is the best job you can get.
And and then your competition is people who are trying to like use their car to deliver papers, and they have 10 paper routes. And those people are crazy.
I wanted a paper route, and I tried it. I thankfully, instead of getting one, I actually just tried it. I spent the night at my cousin's house, and she was watching someone's house, and part of the deal was she had to do their paper route for them. And I helped her out on a Sunday morning, and I was so Sunday. So the papers are really big, and we had to fold them all together and stuff them. And then I was too tiny to keep the bike balanced with the weight of the paper. So every time I'd get on the bike, it would fall over. And I couldn't even, so I had to walk the bike. I couldn't even get on the bike until I got rid of a certain number of papers. So anyways, I learned quickly it was not the job, which is good.
God, you had circular days, you had Sundays, you had those days that were like the papers were like, I remember I helped you out. You would go and go with your family and then you'd be like, Joe, can you take over? You'd be like, shit.
Yeah, you got to find a backup. If you want to take a vacation, then you have to find someone to deliver the papers for you. There's no vacation
so
day.
Just remember putting that sack around my bike, this big paper sack, and you put papers on each side, and like your bike would be unbalanced, and it would
just weaving around.
Weaving around.
Yeah, rub against your
and
tire.
You're in the dark, walking up and down the street, and like people are going to work, and you're trying not to get run over. It was, but I actually have really fond memories of it, even though it was a slog, because it was. Sometimes there were these moments of exhilaration when you felt like the only person on the earth, and it was it was the early morning, and once you had all this weight off your shoulders because you had literally thrown it on people's porch, and then you were kind of walking home, and the day's starting. So I like that part of it. Everything else, I don't know.
Sucks.
Yeah.
We also had a lawnmower, it was like a landscaping business of sorts. Joey and I did this together. We were the worst landscapers ever.
You were landscaping?
We suckered a couple people into paying us to mow their lawn, and I would take my parents' lawnmower. I remember once we walked that lawnmower all the way down Morello,
all the way down Morello
to
7-Eleven, and just knocked on doors.
This lady was going to pay us like $60 to do her yard, but then her yard had so many weeds.
Right.
And so I mowed the lawn, and then we were just going do we really have to do all these weeds? So much. And eventually I think she said that she gave us like $40 and was like, you can go home. You're not doing a good job. Actually, I think there were several jobs we had like that where people were like, okay, can you do this whole area? And then, do you remember the guy who lived behind us, that Paul? His dad hired us. He had just a rat's nest of a yard, and he wanted us to weed the whole thing. And I think we eventually quit. We did the front part, and we're like, no, we're done. No way. This is too much work. Not worth it.
The HOA wanted us to landscape the whole hill and pull weeds, and that was just
weeds.
Weeds. That was a little overwhelming.
When you're a kid and a job runs into 3 hours, it feels like eternity.
Literally, when you're a kid and your job runs into time that you could be playing video games and doing other stuff, it becomes it becomes too much.
Yeah, you're like, well, this is not
overwhelming. It just is.
It's like having money in your piggy bank is cool, but also, you don't actually need it at that point.
What's that? What's that?
Money.
Your
parents.
My parents were a little bit stingy with the money, so it was. I like making my own money. Going down to the arcade and spending my own money, hard-earned money on arcade games,
blowing your own lawn money on.
Yeah, your 2-week paycheck for paper routes can go in 2 hours in an arcade.
Right.
Oh God.
Kurt.
How about you? Paper route was mine. Shout out to the Irvine World News.
Nice.
That was my first paper, but it's terrible because I have that on my list of worst just because it's, and I remember I did that during college too.
Oh, gee.
You did?
Me and an ex-girlfriend, we did that early mornings, and it was, we did a couple giant apartment complexes, and it was just awful. Awful. So that's that's a pretty terrible one as far as first jobs go.
And it's a grind, and there's not really a lot of upside in terms of cash.
No.
And there's no vertical
You're limited by
movement
the
in
profit margins of newspapers.
You kind of
very low.
hit your ceiling right when you get the job. Like there's nowhere else you can go.
Right.
That's it.
You're not going to move up.
Well, that's what's crazy though is it's like kids, like if a kid would listen to this, they'd be like, "Fucking paper route." Like
Yeah.
what? What do you like? I don't even understand.
I had to explain to my son Gus that one of my first jobs was helping a friend of mine with a paper route, and he's like, "What's a paper route?" I'm like, "You get newspaper. What's a newspaper?" And it's like, we went to this rabbit hole of like, what? Why do people get newspapers? Why didn't people get newspapers? Strange.
It's not a problem that is existing anymore.
No.
Yeah. Wow. It's weird.
So for some of the best that I had, and two, I'm sure we'll probably all go some on experience and some from just thoughts. But one of the early jobs that I had was working at a record store.
Oh, I remember.
Again, you can file this one under things that don't exist all that much
Record
anymore.
store?
What record store?
Warehouse.
Where? Oh, that's
Blockbuster,
right.
Blockbuster Music.
Oh, Blockbuster.
Right.
Music, yeah.
Blockbuster music.
Blockbuster Music first, yes, and so that was a place where you could listen to CDs before you bought them. Like we would open the CDs. We had a bar that had headphones on it, and so people would bring a CD and you could listen to it before you bought it to see if you liked it. But it was a super fun job just because it's like dealing with music all day, and you got like they would send promo CDs and we would get them like weeks early, and they would send you concert tickets, and just like at the end of the day, it's just not that difficult of a job, like stocking CDs and opening CDs and talking about music and helping people find good music. So that was that I think as far as early jobs, and again, that's not really something a lot of kids are going to be running out and doing anymore. But that was for me, that one is pretty high on the list.
Although record stores have made a comeback compared to like the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I know that like vinyl
record stores,
it's selling more now than it ever has. I mean, compared to pre like digital music.
It is a novelty.
Right.
There's certain novelty to it. I think that, but back in the day, music stores were kind of almost a cultural like hangout. If you went to an indie, like even a big box or an indie record store, that's where people went to like find their culture and their their music
Community, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. I also had because I never was actually one, but it was the early. But I have lifeguard as a good first job.
Right.
I worked at a water park, Water World USA. And that doing some of the other shit jobs at a water park, not a great job. Like working, like handing out tubes, or like working the locker rental like I did. But
I was tube and locker rentals, Water World USA.
Yes. Oh, you guys both worked there. That's right.
Yeah.
And do you guys know the story about when Kurt got his job at Waterworld? I worked at Office Max. I was a customer service guy at Office Max, and I'd been there for like 6 months. And then Kurt was looking for a job for summer. And I went to my manager, and I was like, my friend's looking for a job. Can we get him a spot? And Kurt came in, I think. Did you come in and do an interview? I don't know if they interview for that kind of thing.
I worked there. Are you forgetting that I worked there? I 100% worked there.
At Office Max?
Yes.
Because I remembered, I seem to remember that like it was your first day and you called in. We're like,
no.
I took a job at Waterworld. I'm out.
No, I worked there for like 6 months.
No, really?
Yes.
I must have like romanticized.
We're learning new things here.
I made you like a villain in my head.
You made me a villain.
Where I got you the job, and then it was your first day, and on your first day you called out, and we're like, I'm out.
It's a better story. That is a better story.
Maybe I called in sick or something, but no, I worked there. Yeah, because Because
And
we
then you
stole
told-
pens and all sorts of shit together.
Whoa,
Oh,
whoa,
okay.
whoa,
I didn't know
whoa,
you did that with me.
whoa.
And then because I remember being very jealous of you working at Waterworld. But then, like, I made like $2 more an hour at Office Max, and I was like, how could Kurt work at Waterworld when he makes $2 less an hour? And
certain status about Waterworld.
Yeah.
I have a
and quality of
question.
life.
Yeah.
Kurt,
yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, but this memory came up for me. We went to the Waterworld USA. It was like a big deal because they were opening, and they had this big. All the employees were going to this one space for this big. I don't know where you go sign papers. I don't know what it was. And we were in the parking lot at Sun Valley Mall by Wells Fargo, and we tried to pull out, and we like maybe cut someone off by accident. I don't recall. But this dude stopped his car in the middle of Contra Costa Boulevard, got out, ran towards you were driving, and ran towards your door.
I don't remember this.
And tried to like go. And I just remember I looked at you and you went, and you floored it. And he goes like, we peel out, we pull out, and we just drive away. And we just never spoke of it again. And I swear, I was like, I wonder if Kurt remembers this. Like, I don't know if we like.
I
cut the
honestly
guy
have
off.
no recollection of that.
Well, you blocked it out. I swear it
I'm
happened.
surprised too, because that's like a traumatic experience.
Yeah, I remember I was like totally shaking, and this guy got out of his
Wow.
car and was just red faced and like I feel like he had a tank top on and musket. Like I don't know if I like how much of this I'm making up. I do know he stopped his car, got out, and ran towards your door. And we just like peeled out.
Now
Oh,
that
you
I
said
know
you-
I made up the story about Kurt quitting on his first day, it's possible
knows
this
if
guy
this
was
is-
just walking to his car and he was like headed in your general direction. You were like, oh my God, he's coming for me.
In my recollection,
all this shit happened to Kurt.
Yeah, in my
This is
recollection,
kids, though.
he
We all
stopped in the
have
middle of
these
the road. But who
Very
knows?
active imagination. Yeah.
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 But my job at Waterworld was literally one of the worst jobs I've ever had. I mean, the lifeguards were like, they'd walk by with their
Super cool.
whistles and everyone would be like, oh, they're so good looking. And it was like a movie. It was literally the experience of like a teen movie. And I was in tube and locker rentals.
Yeah, we were in the same.
You were in there too.
department,
Okay,
yeah.
in the first day, they decided the best thing to do is that everyone has to put a $2 deposit on their tube and locker, and they have to bring their receipt back at the end of the day after going to the water park. And then we
great.
could give them their $2. Well,
And it's
after
your responsibility to
Yeah.
check.
so
right?
they go,
Guess how that
the
went.
only way you can give them $2 is if you have that piece of paper in your hand. So people came back and they just had mush, and they'd like throw it at you, and I'd be like, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't give you. Give me that!" And people are screaming at you over their $2.
$2.
Yeah, yelling. I literally remember standing there holding like I don't know $400 and $2 like dollar bills with 150 people around me just yelling and throwing like little like
Oh,
receipt chunks
it was
at
so
me.
unorganized. It's just like throwing these poor teenagers to the wolves.
It
Yeah.
was awful.
Terrible.
Like who designed that idea? Let's you have to have a receipt to return. And yeah, it was it was bad. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Still a cool job.
It's
Status
still a
wise.
cool job, satisfied.
To tell people that was your job in high school. Be like, yeah, I worked at the water park.
Oh, well, the other thing that I did at the water park was they promised if you stayed on. I was the only employee in the department that stayed on the entire summer. It ran through like October, right? I went like May through October, and you're gonna get a bonus for every hour that you worked. And I got this bonus check, and I kid you not, it was like $16.84, like
A
extra
slap in
money
the face.
for like the entire summer.
Yeah.
And it
Where
was
did
like,
you go first, Sarah?
you're so good. You were so loyal. Like you stayed on, and they're like,
You
you're
got
gonna get
sunburned
that
every
bonus
day.
check. Yeah, I got heat stroke once. I'm like, I got sent home with heat stroke.
Ugh.
Yes, like I swear it was like $16. I wish I could find that check. Ugh.
Yeah.
It was not all that it was
It's your first
cracked up
taste
to
of the
be.
And we had
filthy
to
side of corporate
we had to
America.
blow up the brand new tubes too. Like they had gotten the shipment, like it because it was this water park was brand new, and so they got the
That's
shipment
right.
of all the tubes, and so we had to blow up like 1,000 tubes. It was
By mouth?
No, that's
no,
cool.
they had a machine.
They had a
Oh,
thing,
okay,
but you.
okay.
They had a machine, but still, it's like
By
your hands smelled like that vinyl. You know that
Yeah.
terrible vinyl smell that.
Do you guys ever? So maybe this is just me, but I have a weird thing that I always want to try and blow up inflatables by mouth. Like I have a pump, but I always want to try and do it. I'm like, it's like a, it's.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna do it, even if it's
Conquer
a
it,
giant
yeah.
fucking like sofa. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna sit here. I'm gonna commit to the next hour. I'm just gonna do deep breaths and try not to.
I bought
don't
this.
know what's wrong with me?
Yeah, I bought this this floaty. It was like a sectional like jacuzzi and pool. I tried to do it by mouth. It was the middle of summer and almost stroked out. I swear to God, I had to lay down.
That's what
I
happens
almost
now.
died.
You feel so terrible when you have the head.
Every time I see a tube, I think, oh, no problem. I'll have no problem blowing it up. And that's where, so it's not like I want to do, but in my head, I'm like, oh, I got this. And literally after like 2 breaths, I'm like, I can't do it. Like, it's very concerning. Yeah. I'm like, okay. So I just always think I can do it and I can't.
That's a good point, Mace. That's a really good point. There's some sort of like, it's like a challenge. Like I do the same thing. Like before I have a hand pump and it seems like that would be like the first thing I go to. But I just want to blow it up, and I'm going to go for it.
It's weird.
It's a weird thing. You're right.
And I still do it. We even have one of the little motorized, for air mattress thing now with different size
attachments.
things. Yeah, but stupid.
Well, I worked at when I moved to LA when I was like 19, and the first job I had was I was working at a place called Robex Juice part-time. And Robex Juice was like Jamba Juice. It was like a competitor at the time. It was one of the worst jobs ever because of just that noise, that constant, like that blending noise.
Oh.
And it just never stops, and it goes on all day. And it's just terrible. And all you're doing is just scooping. You just do the same thing over and over. You scoop the same things in. I worked there for about 2 weeks. I don't know if you guys had this experience before, but have you ever had a job and just never gone back for your final paycheck? Just said, fuck it. I'm not even going back there. It's not even worth it.
No,
I've had at least 2 jobs where I just didn't even show up. I'm like, fuck this.
Joe, Sarah just told us she stayed on off season for $16. She is loyal. Yeah.
Very loyal.
I bet you there's like a website I can go to where I have like uncollected. There's like uncollected funds.
Probably right.
Yeah.
I bet you there's some money out there because there's been a few jobs where I'm like, I don't even want to walk in here anymore. I'm not even going to collect my last paycheck. I'm out.
There's only been one job that I got and then never actually worked, called and quit. And I still to this day have like a sense of guilt because I felt like I let them down. Like it's just, so I already was working 2 other retail jobs and I secured a 3rd one over holiday at Banana Republic to really bring in some extra income. But it was going to be over my holiday break. And when they gave me my schedule, they neglected to tell me that it also included like all these on-call hours. So not only would I be scheduled, but like every single day I'd have to be on call by a phone and be able to come in like within an hour. And I was like, that is not what I signed up for. So I just called up and quit. But I remember pacing. It was like a whole discussion with my family. Oh, I make everything so much more difficult than it needs to be. I called. I felt guilty. I wouldn't walk by Banana Republic for like 2 years. It's like, even though I worked on the other side of the mall, like I worked at another store. Actually,
shout out to Structure.
Yeah, I may have been working as an elf. Or a Santa assistant at the same season. So anyways, but yeah, so that was my only Structure too. I worked Structure. I worked as
Structure is a cool store.
Santa helper, and then I dropped Banana Republic. It was a little too heavy.
How does Santa helper work?
Awful. So it was.
I would imagine
the work was not bad actually. So you would think it actually wasn't the people, but we had like a nightmarish manager who would just like scream at us all the time. So, and it's crazy because it's like the simplest thing, like it's little kids, you're, like Santa kids, let's have fun. I really thought I was going to dress up in a cute outfit, like be in the middle of, I don't know what I was thinking, like be in the middle of the mall, like, hey, everybody, it'd be really fun. But our manager was just so mean and
you're like Elf.
Yeah, that's like how I imagined. But yeah, it was not good. The manager was mean. She was mean to people. People complained a lot. I only did it 1 season. I don't recommend that.
There is a fun comedy book David Sedaris wrote called the Santaland Diaries, which is about his experience as an elf working at a Santa shoot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but in my case, it wasn't the people; it was just the manager, which I'm
Isn't it-
sure.
isn't it
I'm
funny,
sure
like-
that's not always the case. So
No, it's not. But isn't it funny, like how like these first jobs, these retail jobs, customer service jobs, the expectations are so high.
So
in
high.
terms of your commitment and time, and loyalty,
enthusiasm.
and it's like what? But the compensation doesn't match the kind of demands
Right.
that they expect of you. And as you become more of a professional, you kind of go on in your career. The kind of flips. Like you don't need a tough manager or mean manager and all these expectations of like you have to be in here. You have to show up to work at this time and do this and do
Right.
that. Like it's
Right.
Yeah.
The
It's-
compensation doesn't match the amount of dedication they want from you.
They require from you. It's just
So let's talk retail for a minute, because I think that's like probably a big group of these that we all did retail.
Yep.
And I feel like so there's a few things I want to talk about. So number one is like just the shittiest training possible to prepare you
Yes.
for like what you're going to experience. Especially too, I mean, a lot of times it's like your first or second job, and like you're just unfamiliar with how a lot of the shit works. You know what I mean? And then too, like just like asking kids to handle that amount of cash, you know what I mean? Like, especially if you work in a busy store, like that's a lot of fucking cash. And I remember like the pressure on you to like, if you had to balance your drawer, and if it didn't, it felt like they told, like they made it seem like, well, we're probably going to call the
Yeah,
cops.
it
I mean, you're going to get fined. You know what I mean?
So
And this is
true.
why I stole pens and calculators, not cash.
so true.
Sorry, Al.
I remember
Wait.
working at Structure during holiday, the man store
You
Structure.
sound so British when you say holiday.
Holiday.
It
I
sounds
don't know why.
really regal. It sounds nice.
Oh, well,
Holiday.
thank you. I'll take it.
Cheerio.
Oh,
I was on holiday.
on
working
holiday, but
at Sun Valley Mall. It's quite nice.
the
Boxing Day celebration.
this I was
Oh,
using the
shit.
register, and an much older man who seemed a little bit impatient. There were real long lines, and you know how stressful that is in retail. Long lines, people are
Yeah.
impatient. It's like holiday rush. And
I'm that
I
old guy.
couldn't, I did it, whatever. He gave me the change, and then he gave me like a different amount of like change to try to make the money come back exact. But I was so scattered,
Oh,
I
I
didn't
hate
quite
that
understand.
move.
So I'm trying to like put in the thing, and he just starts screaming at me about how kids today are dumb and don't know how to do math, and I shouldn't even be using the register. But the whole point is you have to click into the register exactly what you're doing. And I mean, like, it was like traumatizing. I was like shaking, and there's
Joey.
no manager. Like, everyone's just yelling at me. I'm like, yeah.
What are you, too stupid? And make
Come on now, guys.
Oh,
guys,
it's awful.
guys, listen. When the service is so egregious, it's so terrible. I will say something, but I'm not like gonna put kids on.
You can't add 1585? What's
I
wrong
don't
with
put
you?
kids on blast. Trust me, ever. Come on now.
I don't know, Joey. You said you've had a lot of.
That is
You're
specific.
like, oh, here comes this fucking guy.
That's just specific to stupid masking policies that I've been yelling at people for the last year about.
Oh,
You know what though? So one thing I will say positive about retail experiences is that I remember like my friends. You have these comrades that you work with at these places because the job is basically to be a punching bag
Yes, what a
for
robot
the
can do now.
customers. Yeah, and so the only people you had to talk to, because you have some guy who's your manager who, looking back, is like
Come on now, be nice.
he's a okay. Probably
No, don't be nice.
life
Shoot it
probably
straight.
didn't work out great for them,
Oh,
and
geez.
so that's where some of the anger is coming. And then there's these other kids who are all just lost and not trained well and dealing with asshole customers. And I did have these deep like relationships, friendships with people that I worked with in these situations because I think the trauma that you shared, you could bond.
shared.
You could bond
Yeah.
over, and just like so. I can remember all the people I was friends with at those shitty jobs when I was getting pissed on by customers who you would go back and be like, that fucking guy, you won't believe what he said, and it made it okay.
Yeah, there's
I
a
can
certain
see
camaraderie.
that.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I think we should also talk about the direct proportional relationship between how shitty your job is and how much you call in sick to that job. Because that for me, that was like, if the job was shitty, I'm just going to make up any excuse to call in sick whenever I want, as much as I
Oh,
want.
I can't do it. I can't do
I know.
it.
I can't.
I made
either.
up some heinous excuses, some terrible excuses why I couldn't show up to work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it right now, but
I would
actually,
go
I will.
over,
I will.
like,
I will.
yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
Statute of limitations,
So I was
Joe.
working at
Statute of
Sam
limitations.
Right.
Goody. Working at Sam Goody. I think Kurt, we were living together. First apartment. Might have partied a little too late. I had to show up early to some shitty job at Sam Goody. I'm like, fuck this. I called up Sam Goody. I said, you know, my grandmother's in the hospital. I can't make it. It totally made this shit up. Totally made it up. And it was a bad excuse.
Gosh.
But like, what is a manager supposed to say? Like, well, you know, you got to show me proof. You know. So he's like, oh man, that's terrible. Okay, no problem. Well, that was the one day my mother decided to come see me at work, which she never ever did.
Oh no!
So she came into work and she says, "Is Joey here?" And they said, "No, Joey's grandmother's in the hospital."
Oh
my
God!
Oh,
I never heard the end of that. I mean, like, what are the odds that your mother shows up to your job? By the way, this lady never showed up to anything in my whole life. She shows up to my job that day and asks where I am.
Oh God!
That's like a movie
It totally.
situation. Yeah.
Totally.
Right, like it's almost
Ferris
too cliche
Bueller's
to
thing.
happen. Oh God!
Oh, by the way,
I think
Sam Goody was actually one of my worst jobs because I don't know if it's related, but I was a seasonal job and they didn't hire me on for the rest of the year. I'm like, you're fucking picking these douchebags over me? Like, you're not going to hire, you know, because they would have to make a cut after the Christmas holiday is done. And I was cut.
So you were insulted.
I was cut from Sam Goody. I mean, like, you know how demoralizing that is? Like,
you know who I am?
As an 18-year-old, like, what am I doing with my life where Sam Goody is like rejecting me?
Again, if I could play devil's advocate, you did call out by saying your grandmother was sick.
That never came back. Oh wait, that's true though. You know, you live and you learn. See, that's the good thing about first jobs is it helps teach you what not to do.
That's true.
As you go along with your career.
Yeah, because it's never going to be your hopefully your life job. You know what I mean?
I mean,
and I think that's also why it's so shitty is because everyone knows this is like there's no reason to invest in this person who's working this job because they're not going to stay here. They're not going to like be a lifer. And if they are, then we probably don't want that type of person to work here because they have no ambition or like sort of incentive to grow because there's no growth in retail jobs. Unfortunate. Maybe I don't know. Or maybe just is what it is.
Well, and two, that's the shitty thing you talked about, Mace, is like you have these, you know, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, you know, on up, but yeah, these people who are in these management positions, and generally it's probably not the place they want to be. You know what I mean? Like they're not thrilled to be in that position, and then you the 16 to 18-year-old are having to deal with their bullshit.
And we're assholes too at that age.
Oh,
like let's not.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're like, I'm a hot shot. I'm going places. And so it probably sucks for them too. Yeah, right.
See you, loser.
Somebody's just trying to like make ends meet, and we're judging them because we're like, I'm out of here soon. You're a fucking manager, blah, 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 which was probably their worst job ever too.
Or best.
Probably.
A lot longer.
Yeah, it depends. Some of
I had some good managers that I appreciated. You know, they
did too.
They were kind and they were considerate and fun and kind of made work interesting and I appreciate that.
Did you really?
Yeah, at Office Max, there were a couple people there. I remember. I actually really liked working at Office Max. I think it was because it's a big enough retail store. So when I think about like your Robex juice story,
Yeah.
that's and maybe even Sam
Small.
Goody. It's a very small space.
Sure.
You cannot hide from customers.
Right.
So anyone comes in, you're like, you got to be on.
Front and center.
Yeah, and in Office Max, it's such a big store that you could find shit to do. You could be in the back, or you could be around, and you can kind of choose. There was a little more agency to go like, I'm going to help this person, or I'm going to keep putting these pens on the rack.
Yeah, you had some
Right?
more. You had more autonomy.
Yeah, and you could hide and be in different places and have stuff you're doing. And my favorite time was sometimes like you would work overnight and you're just scanning stuff, playing music on the PA, and then you didn't have to deal with customers at all. So
Oh, fucking inventory.
Yeah.
inventory, yeah, and that was exhilarating
Yeah.
because you're up all night and like weird hours. So it was fun.
Yeah, I liked my structure job, the store structure. I actually, out of all my retail jobs, I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
There was most of the managers I had were pretty nice, and they had really good music. They would have like these special mixes that we'd play, in the back, and you can control whatever you're going to play in the store, but you had to choose from like the 6-7 CDs that they provided for you. But they always had like music I had never heard before. At the time, I thought it was really edgy. Probably wasn't, but I don't know where they were. Like, I was like, this is crazy. Like, they don't even play it on the radio. But it would be really fun because I'd just like listen to music and fold things, like fold the jean wall over and over. And and most of the customers at that store that came in were really laid back. They were just like, hey, I'm going to go to this event. Can you help me find something? And so it was like a really
Right.
good experience out of all of them, out of all my retail experiences. I would say the men's store was my best.
So here's something that I never did, but I think both Mace and Joe, you did a little bit of this, and I have it. I feel like it should be on worse, but it's like working for a parent.
Ooh.
Oh yes,
So-
yes, yeah. That is a. It's funny because I've been talking to some people, and most people I've asked their first job was working for a parent.
Mhm.
Was like, my dad paid me to stuff envelopes and said, I'll give you $20 if you
Oh.
just like every time you stuff all these envelopes. And there's a lot of that. Like my dad had a printing business, and so that was actually a pretty cush job. Like I would just sit at the front, and it was not a super busy business. So I would kind of like, we didn't have the internet, but I would like play Minesweeper on the computer, and that was okay. But a lot of people have this, like, their parents figure out the shittiest part of their job,
Ooh.
and they go like, hey kid,
Give
you
it
want
to
$20? I'll give it to you. You do this for me.
Yeah. I working with my dad, I had more autonomy. Obviously, I was a little bit older,
Yeah.
but you do have to deal with the dynamic of the father-son relationship, which
Mhm.
you take that out of the home and bring it into like an environment like a workplace, and you really heightens kind of the tensions that you might have had in the home. It just heightens it. So you have to really be good at conflict management with your family when you work with them, because it could bubble over, and it gets ugly if it bubbles over in a public place. And so you really have to work hard to just keep it under wraps and just talk about it after work, because you can't separate the relationship you have with your parents, even if you're even if you're working. You have to suppress it, but you can't. It doesn't go away. You still have the same resentments and problems and issues you have with your parents. It's just now in a more open environment.
It's also a much harder job to quit.
Yeah, right.
Oh man.
For real.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So my wife has her own hair salon, and so my 16-year-old daughter has on occasion we'll do some work at the salon for her, and it's just as like, yeah, that it's just really hard. You know what I mean? Like if you're kind of being lazy, it's because you just get taught
Yes,
differently too
yes.
by your
It's
parent than you would
Like
a
a
normal
normal
boss.
boss,
Right.
Sure.
And
a
it's
normal
just
boss
like-
talks to you like your parents do. You're probably gonna have to have words. I mean, I would have words with that person. It'd be tough. It'd be tough to
Right.
it'd be tough to just swallow. Like what the I don't know. Wait, I don't know how your parents talk to you, but whatever your triggers are, it's gonna happen at work also.
They're gonna know exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
made for some interesting conversations.
I'm sure.
There
one great.
Yeah, there are jobs that I know I've had that I've forgotten about. Honestly, I've had so many jobs when I was younger. There are retail jobs that were probably so bad that I can't even recollect. I don't even know. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember every job you've had. Do you? You guys?
I do, and then I think about it, and I start remembering other things I did.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then he thinks he didn't work with Kurt, but he did.
Right.
Kurt quit on the first day.
Sorry, Miss,
Right.
Never even showed up.
Oh no! I was just gonna say that on one of the things I had on my best list, I think for a starter job is CEO, and it I mean, it has a prerequisite that you have to have rich parents and that own businesses that you can take over. But it is definitely I think one of the top best. I was just gonna put that out there.
See,
I don't know how you guys feel about nepotism.
I mean, I wish I had parents that would elevate my status like that.
No, but let's talk about.
I mean, what?
Go ahead, Kurt. No, what were you saying?
And maybe it'll be, but being like a YouTuber now or like an influencer, that's got to probably be high on the list, because if you're one of these, because I feel like all of my kids went through a stage where they legit wanted to be a YouTuber at some point, and my 7-year-old is crazy into hockey, and he tells me tonight, Dad, I want on our next vacation, I want to go to Canada because I want to visit this. There's this family that's big in the hockey circles, and he's been watching these YouTube videos incessantly. And he wants to meet this kid. That's why he wants to go on vacation in Canada. And so it's just I have to feel like these kids, that little families or whoever that make a mark and are making money, and companies are sending them shit like these Nerf videos and toy
unboxing,
reviews and stuff like that has to be the best job of all time. You have all this money is coming in, you get free stuff of the stuff you like, and you're going to be set up for
I thought about that too, Kurt, because I see my kids' friends wanted to do it. My kids aren't really into it, but their friends they have phones already. 7-year-olds have phones and already making content for YouTube. But I mean, on the flip side of that, think about the parents that are putting out this content and have to put out the content with their kids, and they have to constantly put out their content. I don't know if the kids are really wanting to be on camera that much, and there has to be some sort of push and pull with you have kids, you have to fucking do this. You have to get on camera right now.
Right.
I don't want to do it, because your kids sometimes don't want to do it. They want to just sleep in. They want to eat snacks. No, you got to get on camera right now. So there's some of that. That's probably not that great.
We got to do.
It's also not a long-term career option. And I think the money, because of scale, the money ends up
balancing out,
if you hit it one time for a year, then and you're not a dipshit, you can live on it. But it does create some, if you make $1 million opening toys when you're a kid, think about how that fucks up your sense of your perspective of wages for the rest of your life.
Yeah, what do you what's next?
You're wait, how much does this job pay?
Everything is going to be a fucking disappointment.
Everything.
Even if you're making $100,000 a year working a decent job, you're when I was 8, I opened toys and
people
made $1 million.
When I was 6, my mom would wake me up at 5 a.m. every day and open shit up all day, and that was the shit. That was the life.
And she made me do it over and over, and I cried.
And she spent all my fucking money.
That is definitely an option. I worked at this event called VidCon, which is a conference for YouTube and TikTok and whatever people, stars, and then all the fans that come to see them. And it was unreal because I didn't know who anyone was, but they were all celebrities. I would look them up and they would have 8 million followers, and I had no idea who they are, and even trying to look at their social media feeds, I didn't understand why they had 8 million followers, and it's just I'm old and I don't understand.
Mace, I showed the VidCom gallery to Rochelle's friend's daughter, and she was flipping out because she like knew every single person. They're like, because like YouTube stars now are almost bigger than movie.
Yeah,
they're like movie stars when we were kids.
Yeah, it was insane, and I was like, I don't care. The only guy I knew was the Chocolate Rain singer. I was like, I know him.
Oh I remember him.
Tay Zante or something. Yeah. Very nice. They were all pretty nice.
So, I interrupted you, Mace. You were starting a point now.
Oh, my camera's again. Yeah, I was gonna ask. We talked about retail, but another, an industry that I don't know how did.
Yeah.
How many of us, if we raise our hands, worked in the restaurant industry? Yeah. I know Joey and I did. Did you guys ever work in the restaurant industry?
My one and only, and this is falls in because I have food in the worst. So I worked at what's the name? It's the soup and salad.
Oh, Togo's. I remember you worked at Togo's. No.
It's the what's
Fresh
the soup
Choice?
and the salad place?
Soup Plantation.
Soup Plantation. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I worked there. I was the
I remember
the
this.
soup and pasta person, and it's it's still like I'm still traumatized by it. It was the worst. It just was like I figured out super quick that was not for me. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I hightailed it out of that fucking place.
Well, for me, the restaurant industry. I have there's been moments, working in restaurants where you've reached a maximum threshold of stress where like there's no other job since I worked in restaurants that I've been that stressed out in. But I never I would always overcome these obstacles. And Sarah, you brought up a great point once. You told me a while back, like sometimes when you're working and you're stressed and things seem to be coming at you, you're kind of operating at a higher level. You kind of operate at this level where, you just get it done. You have to get it done and no matter what. And so restaurants taught me to really time management skills, and it taught me to overcome stress sometimes that seemed like it was unbearable. But I would always feel like when things were so chaotic and you're slammed and you got all these tables, and you rise to the occasion, it's exhilarating. It really is awesome. And the great thing about working in restaurants, half service restaurants are different because you're kind of slave to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But when you're working in a full service restaurant, you kind of are your own boss in a way. You can really hustle and make more money if you want to, or you can take it easy and not make and not do that. So restaurants it was an awesome job, and like I said, super stressful, but super exhilarating, and you get to walk home with cash every day, which is sweet.
Yeah,
that piece
I
is
loved
nice.
working at the restaurant. It was one of my I worked at a restaurant for I guess it was through in all college, but it was for the same reason, Joe, because you would just be like, it had these ebbs and flows. And when you were on, you were just like the Terminator,
right?
Just knocking out problems. It was like people would give you problems. You're like, I got
this. I got it. Yeah.
And then you would play games in your mind where you're like, how many problems can I line up in a row and just be like, bing, bing. Here's your fork. Here's your coffee. Here's your dinner. Let me take your order. And then,
check
by
here.
the way, are you ready? Are you ready for your check? Yeah, it was sweet. I still have dreams to this day.
Me too.
That I'm at the restaurant and I'm going like, okay, I've got a dozen tables. They need toast. They need more jam. They need coffee. And you're just like, it's you're in the Matrix and you're like bobbing and weaving. And
it sounds like very Tetris, sort of.
Yes,
like it's
exactly.
it gets more and more and more intense. Like
yes,
it's also one of the worst jobs because people are just exceedingly rude and they have these different expectations,
crazy expectations.
Yeah.
which are bizarre. Like old people want coffee to burn their mouth because apparently they have no sensation of temperature anymore. And then, like kids want you to give, like teenagers want everything for free because they don't have any money. And so it's.
I was working at Lions in Walnut Creek, and I was working I think it was the 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift. So I show up at 6 a.m. and they don't really staff for, a lot going on at 6 a.m. It's usually one person in a.
Joe, Joe and Mace, I think you need to explain
Oh,
what Lions.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Lions is a 24-hour cafe basically, and they serve just like your
coffee shop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
they have the chicken Super Bowl.
Chicken Super Bowl.
It's a meal in itself.
My favorite thing on the menu.
This is a meal in itself.
So I'm at Lions 6 a.m. I walk in, the other server goes home. It's me and the line cook, and the Liberty wrestling team shows up in their bus, and they all come in, all 30, 40 people, and they all want milkshakes. And what they don't understand is you have to make milkshakes by hand, right? So you have to make 40 milkshakes would take you at least an hour and 15 minutes. So that that's what I was talking about in terms of expectations. The expectations are crazy. Like, why can't we just get 40 milkshakes? Well, I'm here by myself.
Right.
I can literally not do
McDonald's.
That. Yeah, go to McDonald's. But the interesting thing about working in restaurants is there are moments when you work in a restaurant where you feel like everything is just going to fall down, like a house of cards. You're just going to crumble because you're just overtaxed. But then it never really happens. You always overcome, and that's it's a good lesson in life.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, nobody likes to wait for food or whatever, but people are just going to wait for food. That's the worst, right?
Right.
The other thing I liked about Lions, because it was a 24-hour spot, was that it was, like in video games where they have totally different levels that are different experiences. It was the same thing where Joey and I both would often work the 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift. And there you're dealing with the morning, the end of the old people coming in the morning, and then you're doing like brunch, which is crazy. And then 2 p.m. it gets slow. And then you sometimes would have like the 3 to 11 shift where you're doing like late lunch and the dinner rush, and then the beginning of the nighttime. And then one of my favorite shifts was the 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. where you just come in and it's like anything can happen. You're going to get, it could be 3 a.m. and some, like a group of 30 people coming from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Or you're going to get a bunch of like a gang of homeless people wade in and order a water and a hot tea. And then, so it was just like, it was kind of an adventure because you never knew what you were going to get. And you would just have all sorts of different experiences. And being there around the clock, because you would work these shifts and then you would see the patterns over this 24-hour cycle, and you realize there's this one building that accommodates all these different people. You have the teenagers out on the town at night, the old people doing the early bird special, and then you have dates in the dinner time, and then in the morning you get the 4 a.m. guy who comes in every day and orders the same breakfast. And it's just it's kind of cool. It's something I like about restaurants. The same way I think that, we were talking about how music stores were like a community and they served this little niche. The coffee shop, Lions, served all these different weirdos, and you would get to know them by name because Joey and I both worked at different locations for years, but you would know like the guys who sit at the counter that come in between, either they come in at 4 or they come in at 5 or they come in at 6. And so it was like, you had this like little secondhand family of sorts. And I liked the restaurant industry. I think and the cash in your pocket was just like the best feeling in the world because you would leave with your pocket just bulging with dollar bills. And I tore so many pockets of my pants because of like having full of quarters. And that's always a good feeling too, because it's rare these days when you get to like hold your money and feel it's weight. And when your money is all a bunch of dollar bill tips from old people, there's a lot of weight. and that was real satisfying.
You guys were both pretty good at being waiters. That's what I remember. I was always impressed by because you guys hustled, and we're just gonna keep talking. You guys always hustled, and you like, well, and you, I mean, and Mace, you were always one to have kind of your system too. Like, you always, where like, yeah, because you were doing like 16 things at once.
I loved it.
And then Joe, you were always like, like the people pleaser, like making people laugh and, kind of that friendly face that people always like. But yeah, I always remember because I was like coming in and when you guys were working.
Yeah, you guys were good at it. I never worked in a restaurant ever.
Well, I mean,
I don't think I'd handle the stress well.
I took my talents to another level. I ended up going to Hungry Hunter.
That's right.
I missed that salad wheel. What was it? A salad wheel?
What, though?
Lazy Susan salad. It was actually pretty good idea. You're bringing the salad out to each table. You have this little spinner thing. And when the people saw the Lazy Susan, their eyes would open up, and they want to really customize their salad, really incentivize customization. And the steaks were actually pretty good there. And yeah.
It's worth pointing out though that the restaurant industry, it can be a legitimate career.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can make good money.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
If you work your way up and work at higher end restaurants, you can make, like $50 a table, $70 a table. And then all of a sudden, if you're able to do a handful, you're making really good money.
Yeah.
And it's
well, and back of the house too, like there's lots of people that started at Alliance and, went to, got some schooling and went to higher end restaurants.
I mean, not the lines I worked at, but maybe other lines. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you ever say something? I remember it's one of my biggest regrets. Like the thing I don't think I'll ever let myself off. I worked at Lions for like my college career, and I was I was always like, I'm going on to bigger, better things, blah blah blah. I'm going to start a podcast one day. There was this really lovely lady. Her name was Carolyn, and she was funny and sweet, and she was like probably in her 60s, right? And was like hardworking, and she had been a waitress her whole life, and we were fighting one day, and I remember telling her like, at least I'm not gonna work at a restaurant my whole life. And I could, like, it was one of those like bells you can't unring, you did it. And the second I said it, because I really liked her and respected her, but I just like needed to like say something mean in that moment. And man, I feel bad about that because I actually loved that job. It was one of my favorite jobs ever. And I loved her. And I just felt like I tore her down for no good reason.
Is she still there?
That restaurant's not there anymore. I don't know. But it felt shitty, and it is a respectable. All jobs are respectable jobs, and I
absolutely.
That's why it's hard to talk about. Yeah, all jobs are respectable.
Yeah. I was an asshole teenager who thought I was fucking, hot.
The last thing I'll say about working in restaurants, especially
I just want to apologize to Carolyn.
The last thing I'll say about working at restaurants, and
hopefully she's listening.
Yeah, and the cool thing.
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sorry, Carolyn.
Working the morning shift, I really got to know how to communicate with old crotchety people, and it really did. It's a good life skill because older people can't.
No, he isn't.
I'm not. I really am not. That story wasn't representative of like
he learned everything
Ask
he knew.
Ask anyone. No, but I'm talking about World War II vets. I'm talking about guys who are in their 80s. All right, and it's an important life skill because you really they are grumpier. You just got to learn how to communicate with them and learn kind of how to cater to older people. It's important stuff. It's an important life skill. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Yeah, I was remembering too. I kind of in food restaurant, but I worked at Concord Pavilion, which is
that's fancy.
A concert venue, and I worked. It was like it was like to prepare all the different concession stands for all the shit they needed. and it was both super cool and terrible at the same time, because obviously working at a concert venue is kind of cool, and like you're backstage and you get to be like near the acts and they're just like walking around, but then you're also using a dolly to lug a keg up the middle of the grass, and during a country concert, and people are trying to grab it off of the dolly and say, bring it over here, man, bring it over to me.
Funny. It's really
and just,
funny.
And you're making we used to make like the margaritas, and it was like a specific trash can for just making the margaritas, but you would you would put dump however many mix and the tequila and then just schlepping that stuff around, and you'd always come home smelling like tequila and hot dog water and all the crap that we'd have to load out to all the things, but then like you got free concert tickets, and got to be backstage next to like BB King and shit like that.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty sweet job.
How old were you when you worked at the Concord Pavilion? I feel like I remember that. Yeah,
I think I'm like 19, maybe. Yeah, because what's funny is my sister worked there at the same time I did. She was like kitchen manager, because she used to do work in like kitchens and stuff, and she was like the kitchen manager that particular season I worked there.
Oh, I was a
so one of the other
I was a what was it, a swim instructor, but sort of like by accident. I am not a strong swimmer. I'm a terrible swimmer, and I had no confidence in my abilities to swim. So initially I was working like taking money to like get people in the summer pool, and I don't know if someone just didn't show up for work, but they're like, Sarah, we need you to teach the kids to swim. Like, we need an extra instructor. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm scared. And like, you'll be fine. And they just kind of like put me in the water. And I've never had any confidence. I mean, so I had like young kids, like 2-3 years old. It was rewarding in that I did overcome my fear and actually did teach some children some basics, and I wasn't terrible at it.
Couple died, but
some of them.
There was this one kid
died,
that was like he seemed a lot older, and so he was really tall, and when he'd jump in he was afraid, but he was like tall enough where if he jumped in he could touch the bottom, but he'd want you to try to catch him, and he'd go like this and come down, and like that hurt. But other than that, like, yeah, I just remember the thing. I'm like, I came home and I'm like, how am I a swim instructor when I can barely swim and I'm terrified of swimming? Like, I'm afraid of swimming, but I did it. I overcame it. So
have you guys had jobs, other jobs like that? Where I've had jobs where I was not qualified for the job. I didn't know how to do the job, and I would sit there. One of my first jobs, it was my first job out of college. It was an engineering job, and I was working at this company, and I didn't understand what they were doing. It was environmental engineering, and I didn't know anything about like toxic waste dump. And I had this office, and I would sit in there, and I would just spend the day trying to figure out what to do. Yes. And I would try to ask my manager, like, hey, so what am I supposed to do? Like, what do you want me doing?
What would you say it is
I was there for like a year, and I didn't know what my job was. And like, looking back now, I realize that the guy who hired me did a really horrible job of managing me. Not vetting me, because like at one point I found a project. I found a project and was like, oh, I get this. I can help. I can do this. But for most of the time I was there, I didn't know what to do, and I was embarrassed to ask, because I was like, oh, they're going to fire me if they realize I don't know what I'm doing. But I literally would get to work and sit in that office, and I don't know if it was like early internet, if it was internet. So I couldn't like scan the internet or go on Facebook. I would just sit there and like wait and watch the clock and wait for time to go by, but until it was early enough or late enough to like be like, bye, I'll see you tomorrow. And I never did anything at that job. I was
That's so
there,
funny.
and no one seemed to care. It was so weird. It was
Yeah,
so
like no
weird.
one's asking. Like,
It's like the office. It's like the office.
Yeah.
It's like an office episode. It's like you're just.
or Seinfeld, the
Seinfeld.
Penske files, wasn't it? The Penske files.
Did you know that Mason worked here? He's worked here for a year.
What does he do? I don't know.
Who
Sarah,
hired him? I don't know.
when Sarah worked for the city of Danville, she hired me to be Santa Claus at their Santa festival, and I felt unqualified. Honestly, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know how to get in
I
character.
think Santa like got sick or something, right?
Nepotism.
Something
Santa got
happened where
sick.
Santa
Santa
didn't
got
show
sick. I had to
up. There was
fill
a
in.
problem.
So I put on the full Santa outfit, and it was weird. Once I put on that outfit, it was like this magical transformation happened. I became
Oh, you just
Santa.
get it.
And like me and the kids,
Cool.
like every kid that like came by, like we just had this like I knew what they wanted. I knew what to tell them. It was an awesome experience. So I felt unqualified, but I rose to the occasion.
You overcame it.
I overcame.
Oh.
Did you
no,
actually
it was
get paid for it?
Friend rate.
Friend rate. Free.
Yeah, because I've done Santa.
But I was representing the city of Danville, so this is like I'm not just like Johnny. I'm the real Santa.
Yeah.
of
The real
Danville.
deal.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
They still talk about you.
I worked for my first job out of college. That was like my official job. I went to a temp agency. Like I just was like, I need to get something for summer. And they put me, I thought it was big time. I was in the Embarcadero in San Francisco. So I was like, this is so exciting. Like, I get to get dressed up, go in, worst job. But I was at an insurance agency and I was just like the front phone person who picked up the phones. But they didn't really tell me like what my role was. Like it seems easy, right? Like you just transfer. But what ended up happening is I was the first point outside of the elevators behind bulletproof glass, which should have been like an inclination in how the customer service was at this company. And I'm like, okay. And people would call all day angry about their claims that hadn't been processed or were waiting for information from like accidents, whatever. Every time I would transfer them to an agent, which they didn't really explain, like I'm doing like trunk lines, the agent would go to voicemail. So what it ended up happening is I would just talk to people. I didn't even know like what had gone wrong. And I'd just be like, man, I know it's tough right now. Like, and it's terrible that they're not answering. And I know you're going through a lot. And like, so much so that they ended up calling, like somebody called and then they were like, people love you and we want to hire you as an insurance agent. And I was like,
well, God
no,
bless
thank you. But like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do at all. I just answered the phone and be like, man, I know it's messed up. They're not answering and today's tough. And I would just like talk people like down and that's it. And, like,
right. But well, there's so much to what you just said because none of us have worked call centers, and I think that's probably got to be like the worst job ever. Do cold calls or whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing I hate more than anything when you talk to someone, if you're even able to get to a human being, where they are like just obstructionists, right? Where they're like, I know you have a problem, and that's not our policy. And so what you did, which is just the most simple thing, is to say, like, I understand why you're frustrated, but I don't have the ability to help you. And that makes it humanizes that whole moment. Whereas most people you talk to are like, I'm sorry, sir, we can't do that. And they treat you like you're like a crazy person for asking them to be reasonable.
It's so
and then
true.
My most favorite line of all is when you talk to these people and they basically just don't even acknowledge that your request is rational. They're just like, no, that's not how it works. Then they always have to end the call with, is there anything else I can help you with? Which is like, no, you didn't help me, and I'm not going to let you think you helped me.
Yeah,
this is not okay. And all I ever want people to do is like say what you just said, which is like, I get it. It's fucking stupid, but I can't do it, and that's the rules. And I get that. I understand bureaucracy, but when there's like a human being and they're trying to tell me that their irrational bureaucracy is like logical and is the rule, and I'm like, hold on. All I'm asking is for you to be like, I get what you're saying, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I had that like kind of a side note, but we had that recently. We went to a Airbnb. It wasn't Airbnb, but we went to a rental. And while we were at this rental up in the mountains, there was a gas leak with the propane tank. Enough so that we could smell it. We had to evacuate. I had to call the fire department. Fire department has to come out, shut off all the gas, no hot water, no access to anything. They're like, you had a major gas leak. So we're in this rental and we call the company and you just want someone to be like, it's okay. And the one lady was very argumentative. And I said, we should get a full refund. And she goes, well, when we get all of the information, we'll discuss it. And I was like, well, who is we? And she said, it's not me. And then she said, well, it might be me. Well, I might be helping. And I was like, it just like, she couldn't confirm that they would give the money back, which obviously, I mean, you can't stay in a place with no hot water and all this stuff. But it's just the funniest, I was just like, so we is you. And so why can't you tell me if we're going to get our money back? And it was just so infuriating that when it's just like when someone's doing customer service and just can't be just like respectful, like she was just trying to give me the runaround and playing real hard. And I'm like, there's nothing to play hard about. Like, I'm just asking, can we get some money back, lady? So anyways, I think recent frustration.
Well, and don't you think that is, don't you think it, and really it probably goes to like a lot of jobs now, and obviously technology and stuff like that improves lots of stuff, but I think all these systems and you're going by the book, whereas I think maybe even when we were starting out, they had some guidance, but it really wasn't quite as structured, or like they weren't monitoring you as close as they can now. You know what I mean? Like with because I can even see so like my daughter is doing online order picking for a grocery store, and so there's clear metrics. They know exactly how much she's scanning, per hour, and how much of the orders and the route she's taking through the grocery store. And I think whether it's call center, you know what I mean? It's they can watch you and evaluate every moment.
Optimize it.
Are you exactly following procedure? And there's not even that room to have that personal, like you talked about, Mace, to be able to be like a normal person and to empathize. It's no, if you don't say these things, then you don't have a job.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they're trying to automate humans. They're trying to, because these jobs are eventually going to go to robots, right? Let's be frank about it. A lot of these jobs, and so they're already trying to just turn these employees into these robots. Just follow these guidelines. Don't deviate ever.
I know Justin's not here, but it's a sentiment that he often expresses that I agree with. That is that if we're not intentional, that the whole world is everything's going to become automated, and all of us will just deal with robots. And the only people who will actually get customer service,
wealthy people,
as a concierge, are the rich people, right? The rich will be able to have someone say what are you looking for? Can I help you find it? Or pick up the phone and say oh yes, let me remove that fee from your, whatever. And that we're just being trained every time, I respect him. Every time he's directed by a human to use an automated terminal, whether it's at the airport to check in his bag, or at a grocery store to or at a fast food restaurant to place his order, he is are you sure you want me to use this replacement for you, rather than deal with you and justify your job, right? And I think he's fighting a losing battle, and I think he knows that. But it is this ember that's going out, which is that when once upon a time when we all got customer service, and we're talking about customer service jobs, and I actually wanted to bring up the new kind of reality of gig economy, and about how that fits into jobs. Because so part of the reason I thought about this was my son's 16 and doesn't want a job, And then, but some friends of mine, their teenagers are getting their first jobs. And I found out one of my friends, he's doing DoorDash deliveries. And he's 16, and I think you have to be 18 to do DoorDash, but he like has a friend and they share an account. And he figured out, and it seems like a great job for kids, because he figured out how to game the system that like if you only take certain restaurants, you know the bill's going to be like over $100, so you're going to get at least like a $10 tip and plus the delivery fee. So he's kind of gamed it where he can work 1 hour or 10 hours, whatever he wants, and work whenever he wants. And then he can also be very selective about the jobs he takes. So he's able to do it because he doesn't need to work all the time and can optimize it for himself. But then at the same time, those companies are preying on people who are wanting that flexibility and then just sort of shitting on them with like these minuscule $16 bonus checks to pick people up at the airport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about it. I think that I love the concept of a gig economy when you're paying people for the skills and time and talent they offer. But I feel like everything else these days, it's been optimized to shit so that most of the margins go to the management and ownership and not to the people doing the work. But,
Agreed. That's a great point, Mace.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's a good point.
I don't know.
Yeah. One of the other, you mentioned, you were talking about automation and stuff, and I had just, I had heard something about, it's kind of sports related, but about like umpires and referees, and so like referee was a job I had for very short time because I figured out I didn't like it, and I know that's like a popular one too for kids. Like I just had my son's baseball game tonight, and it's like there's a probably 16, 17-year-old kid behind the plate, and like he's got to deal with fuckheads like me and the rest of the parents who are complaining about
Right.
shitty call here or there, and it just is like yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, because eventually, right, like we'll have a robot that can say strike a ball safe and out, right, and it just is like that's another one of those things where these are things that would go by the wayside. And I assume like some of that too, like it seems like I only did it for a short time, but it seems like that's probably something that trains you pretty good for life experiences of how to deal with people, how to handle incredibly stressful situations. You know what I mean? I feel like that would probably give you some real good insight, good training.
Conflict
Both as
management.
the person who does the job and the person who is like affected by the job. Because what's interesting about umpires is that they have a set of rules they work by, right? They have a strike zone, but there's also the human element that can sway it, and that's kind of life, right? Like life's not always fair, and sometimes people make the wrong call, and you sort of have to have the maturity and sense of self to deal with it. And I think that's one of the reasons I think sports is just important, whether you're good at sports or not. It's one of those lessons you learn is that you like sometimes even though you were safe, you're still out, and you have to hold your head up and go back to your dugout and deal with it.
Well, it's funny. So this was a few weeks ago. My son had made the last out of the game, and there was like the winning run was on second, and it was a strikeout on, which it was not a great strike call, but he watched it, and so we had this whole conversation. I said, you have to remember that he's a human. This is probably a 16-year-old kid. This is the second game he's worked today. He probably wants to get home, talk to his girlfriend, go get something to eat, and he doesn't want to send this game into extra innings. So yeah, he wants to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, it is, but it's also, I mean, if only those were the worst villains in our lives, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, the guy who wanted to see his girlfriend after It's a baseball game.
Well, but and you talk about like, but how irate that can make a set of Looney Tunes parents. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like some some poor kid like that. And that's probably one of the scourge of modern society is like how parents treat these poor referees who are doing these jobs for
they
like
just
no
got off
money
their
at all
12-hour
hardly.
Uber shift where everyone's yelling at them and they go right to the game and start yelling at the referee.
Right.
Someone calls their kid out and they're like, God damn it. Fuck.
Oh
It's
man.
like kids sports. When parents get crazy at kids sports games, it's one of the most uncomfortable experiences for me to like be at. Like I don't like it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I have a really hard time. Like it just takes away. It happens no matter what. I mean, I've seen it, but it's just like so awkward. Like I'm like, I don't know how to like handle this like level of emotion that parents are displaying right now over this game. It's just
there's no
a
winner
lot.
in that game. Because like if the parent
No.
gets their way, then the kid's embarrassed. If the parent doesn't get their way, the kid's embarrassed. And the whole
It's just uncomfortable.
It is. But it's a life lesson.
It is.
It is.
just like bad jobs.
It brings up
Right.
another bad job of mine. I only had to do this a couple times. It wasn't ongoing, but we had youth sports, and we would do like what they called like a Cubbies league. So it was like 3, 4, 5-year-olds, I think 4, 5, 6. I don't know. And I would have to sometimes dress up as the bear that would make an appearance out at the field. So you put on like.
You
You
were
were
a
a
mascot?
mascot?
But
Wow.
it was for like a kids.
Oh,
It was for a
shit.
kids
I never knew
sports
this,
league.
Sarah.
I only did it like a few times as like a stand-in, and you go out there and you're like, "Hey!" and they'd be like,
Oh,
"Cubbies out
man.
here!" It was rough. I mean, it's hot. It's like summertime. There's kids pulling at you. They're tiny, like you can't see them. It's the suit smells. It's never been washed.
Oh.
I'm sure. I'm
Not-
sure it's never been
That's,
washed.
that's not safe. That's not safe.
Yeah, so I was cubby a few
Well,
times.
did you guys? I'm sure Sarah probably did, but Mason, Joe, did you guys ever babysit? That's
I mean,
another
a couple
one of those.
times, but I don't have any stories about it.
I was the worst babysitter. So there was a family down the street, only family that ever hired me to babysit. And they had 2 kids and they had a really cool house. They had a pool table and they had like computers with games on it. So I would go babysit and then I would be like, what do you guys want to do? I'm going to go play pool and I'm going to go play on your computer. And I just need you to leave me alone. So do whatever you want as long as you don't talk to me because I'm going to go play computer games and pool.
Do not fucking talk to me.
I was the worst babysitter. I would be like, you want to smoke cigarettes? Sure, go do it. I don't care. Just stay out because I play computer games right now. And they would hire me again and again. And they paid me I feel like it was like 10 or $20 an hour. I don't remember. But it was a lot of money.
Good
They
money,
would get
baby.
home and
In the
give
90s.
$60
Whoa.
or something. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
I babysat a lot.
Oof.
A lot. I had flyers.
Yeah,
I was
figured you probably
doing
did,
it. And
yeah.
some of them you'd make good. Like there was one on my friend's Sunny Street, and that family would pay you like $80 for an evening,
Whoa.
which was like a lot of money. But I do remember one time I was babysitting. This is one of the scarier experiences that happened to me. And I had like a 6-year-old and maybe like a 2 or 3-year-old, definitely younger, where they can walk outside. And the parents had left the garage open. We were going to go ride bikes or something. And I went to use the bathroom, and it had one of those little locks that like it's a slider door, and the lock just kind of goes down like this. And I got locked in the bathroom. The lock wouldn't work. And so
Oh no.
it's like 5 minutes after the parents leave. I don't know. And I go to the bathroom, and like I could hear the kids are in the living room, but I know that the garage door to like go outside is open, and the door outside is open. Like they can go out. And so I'm going, hey guys, just if you guys want to come to the door. And they're like over in there, and I'm fumbling through like all their stuff. I was in there for like 15 minutes, and I think I had to find something under like in the drawers or the counter to get the little slot, like the lock undone. Like the parents come home. How was it? Oh, great. Oh, never mind that I locked myself in the bathroom for 15 minutes.
I feel like you were probably really good.
I think I went. Yeah, I mean, I think I was pretty good. I mean, there was times when I definitely feel like I was maybe too young to babysit. Like one time after the kids went to bed, there was no window covers, and I just felt like someone was watching me, and my mind started to like run with it. And I ended up spending the whole evening upstairs, like in the bathroom or in the hallway, like reading a book because I was too scared because I thought someone was going to break in and kill us all. And they're like, how was it? It was great. Though. Yeah, everything was great.
He did make mischief and the kids went to bed.
But I mean, otherwise, that was pretty good.
So I used to, I don't know, Joe and Mace probably remember. So I lived just down the street from the head coach of the St. Mary's basketball team. And so I used to babysit his kids. So he had 3 kids. And so, I mean, that was always fun because they had a super nice house and they had all this basketball memorabilia. And they like love sports. So I could just, play basketball and whatever with them. And then he would like give me tickets to games all the time. And so it was like,
that's cool.
Yeah, that was one of the easier, but yeah. Otherwise, I would think I was too scared of like little kids to like babysit because that would just was like scared the shit out of me till I was a parent myself.
What were you scared of?
Yeah,
I just like little kids. I just didn't know like how do you like, and like how to handle them and like. When they would cry, like now it seems silly.
Makes sense,
like,
sure, yeah.
You just leave when you're kitty litter for them.
High school kid,
and you go away for a couple days. It's fine. Give some food.
Yeah, teaches them a lesson.
Right.
They know.
Babies are usually the easiest because you just sit.
So do we have
and relax? Yeah,
just In hindsight, it's like
the fucking kids who want to be entertained and. Fun.
Or it's like the age where they're always hungry and they need you to cook them something constantly.
Yes.
I had a kid that played at me and said, "Cut my crust off" or something. Like he was like really mean about it, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like he didn't I didn't know he didn't want crust, and he wasn't like, "Oh, I don't like the crust." He like chucked the plate at me. I was like, "Okay."
I think I was like that when I was the babysitter. I was like, "Hold on, let me get my piece." I was an asshole babysitter. Like I'm gonna get my pizza first, and then you guys.
And then later we'll
deal
get
with
yours.
whatever's left.
I eat, then you eat.
Bad baby. I was not a good babysitter.
So do we have some consensus generally on what's?
I mean,
best
I feel like any job where you feel a little bit more empowered is a good job. As a kid. I don't know. Waterworld wasn't it, right? You didn't feel empowered there. Am I correct in that?
No, I mean I think fringe benefits probably plays a big role, in like what makes it good. Some of those, whether it's like
a lot of times,
and
a lot of times
like
meeting people, and that's a big perk. And Waterworld sounded like a great place to like mingle, and there's a lot of like dating, right? People were dating a lot.
For some.
Is that Sarah?
I wasn't in that category, but yes. I'm sure it was happening for some.
Movie.
I think I went out with somebody.
Okay.
All
right.
So there's a perk.
I think I did.
But for me, I think the best first job for me was restaurant job. But
me too. Yeah. And I would steer people that way. Yeah,
I would too. I mean, but it's not for everyone. I mean, I know a lot of people that really weren't suited for that job. They just couldn't handle it. Whether it's just,
And you could date at a restaurant too.
They're not here right now.
You find it out really quickly,
but they're not on the show right now. Yeah. But not everyone's suited for the restaurant industry.
That's right. And actually, he spent the most time in the restaurant. He did. Went and worked in fine dining.
I really wish. This is the one episode. Like I wish because he's had some really funny stories working in restaurants, fighting with his boss, the arguments he would have, and
about the shine on a wine glass or something.
It's ridiculousness.
Yeah.
But restaurant jobs for me, and then one of my favorite.
Yeah.
I never said my best, but I will. You know what it actually was is I would help out at events and do like face painting or crafts with kids. And that was really, it was like I was playing with the kids, and I did that a lot, like just sort of like independently with like an independent, like this lady ran a business that would call me out for private parties. And I was like 17, and I'd like face paint and like do crafts. It was fun. Like I was like, this is great. Like hang out, just do like eat the food, eat cake with the kids, and like.
God, so you're like a clown.
So working
like
with kids,
Sarah.
actually, I think is probably one of the most challenging things. But I had some really good experience.
Oh, I clown you?
A clown.
You should have been a clown. That's
I wanted
Sarah,
to be like a fairy princess for a while. I thought about doing that.
I think you hit on an important point though, Sarah, which is that like the best job is the job that sort of it feels like something you like doing.
Exactly.
Right? So like
Yes.
Joey and I are both fucking like we love checking shit off and getting shit done. And so I think for us, like the restaurant work was this unending checklist that you could just be like, done, done, done,
Yeah.
done. I did it, I did it, I did it. And it would just keep throwing stuff at you that you could check off. Right? And that was what was so satisfying for me. Because I had
sense.
control of it. I could ramp it up or ramp it down by if you because that's it was this unending like stream of people. And I think that and this is something that I have talked to my own son about because he kind of wants a job. And I'm like, you have to think about like yourself. And it forces you to say like, what do I like and what drives me? Because the things that you find satisfying are not the same as everyone else. And it's a very important point to take into account when you're choosing a like work or field or whatever to go into. I saw a Twitter post the other day that I thought was hilarious, and it said, the two worst feelings in the world are not having a job and having a job.
So true. So true.
They're both just like traps.
Yeah.
They're both traps.
Either way.
And so the only way out is to find a job that you can get some joy or satisfaction out of. And that's it.
Yeah, it's true. There has to be some moments that you're feeling joy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or satisfaction.
Like, there you go. Just some form of satisfaction. I'm
working and I'm doing something, and that satisfies me, because that's most of life. Like we celebrate the moments of accomplishment and promotion, and where you go on to do something great, and we support each other in the sad moments when we quit or we get fired or whatever. But most of it is just grinding.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't know. I think some people, the grind can be satisfying if it's really busy. And then for other people, the grind can be satisfying if it's slow and sort of like paced.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's a weird one. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. Because I think that's probably when I think about it too. Yeah, it's that's probably why, like, record store. You know what I mean? Like,
I think I would hate a record store. I do. I would
checking
be
off
so
a list.
bored. Right.
Doing? But to me, it's like all over the place, and it's loosey goosey, and it's like that fits more of who I am. So I think that is, I think you're right. That's probably great advice too for people that would be looking for an early job. Yeah, it's like try and know who you are a little bit. Like don't lie to yourself at the end of the day, because that's gonna it's gonna put
and
you
if
in
you
some
don't
jobs
like it,
probably,
quit.
Yeah.
Oh,
I really wish I could have understood that.
Don't feel
like,
bad.
I really wish I could have understood that.
Me too.
I love one of my favorite scenes ever is in Half Baked when he quits that job. Fuck you. You're
fuck
cool.
You.
I'm
You're
out.
cool.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
The life lesson.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
You don't have to stick around if you don't want to. Just fucking leave.
But get that out of the way early, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
if you're that guy when you're far into your career, then it suddenly becomes limiting, right?
Yeah.
And you're sort of you don't have as many options. But I do think that like the liberty that I think kids don't realize is that they have a kind of a a card that they can play, which is I'm young and dumb, and they can try things and fail, and it's okay. Our tolerance for failure, unfortunately, as adults, gets like less and less as we get older. But I think that kids can and should try things and then say, really, I really don't like it. Fail in it, or say, I really don't like this, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I wish someone would have told me that when I was a kid, because I was like, I never wanted to quit anything, and I would just stay with things I didn't like or enjoy.
I would do
because
it
I was
too.
like, I'm not a quitter.
Yeah.
Right?
I gotta
And
stay
that
in
was
this.
Yes, that was like the only lesson you ever got is like, don't be a quitter, or don't give up. And like, there's something powerful in saying, I know myself, and this is not for me.
Yes, absolutely.
I think
huge.
that is, Mace. I think that is something in our collective generation is we didn't quit, but I feel like it's changed a lot. I feel like younger kids are less likely to be loyal or stick around than we were.
Yes.
I don't know.
You're right.
That might be a hot take, but that's what I think.
You're totally right, and I have the exact same opposite conversation with my son, where I'm like, he doesn't want to do anything that's hard work, right? Because he's kind of like,
it makes sense.
That's a lot of work. I don't want to do it, and I'm like, life is hard work. You have to find the hard work you enjoy or get satisfaction out of, so that. Or figure out how to get satisfaction out of working, because again, 99% of our lives are just doing the work, and if you can't get satisfaction out of that, you're waiting for the day when it all comes together, then you're going to be miserable. Sorry.
Well, and here's going to be part of the problem is because of how people are throwing themselves at trying to get employees right now, like. You go everywhere, and it's help wanted. The power dynamic is more on these kids right now. You know what I mean? Like they have way more power than they probably have ever had. So, I mean, for sure they can be like,
right.
I went to this place. I don't, there's a bunch of jobs that will give me a $1,000 signing bonus.
I'm going to the water world.
I went to the
still hold that against you, Kurt, even if I made it up.
Oh man, I took my kids to the it was a community pool, and they're limiting the amount of people that can come in and out because they just can't find enough lifeguards. And I'm like, lifeguards? That's like the best job ever. Who doesn't want to be you have a hard time finding lifeguards? I don't understand.
You have to sit in a chair for like 4 hours. It's not a fun job. It's not a good job.
I guess not.
But it sounds cool because, like, in the Wonder Years, it was like the cool thing. Like, job.
I guess it isn't.
Well, they at the theme park here in Kansas City, they're closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for like the next 4 weeks because they don't have enough people to work on weekdays.
I can't believe there's like a human resource problem, but I mean, it makes sense with all the dynamics going on.
Yeah,
I kind of love it. I think the kids should form like a union and demand higher wages.
That's a great idea, dude. I love it. A kids union. I love that.
The Teamsters.
The Teamsters.
Oh my God,
there it is.
Yes,
Kurt.
that's
brilliant. That was brilliant.
Genius.
Wow. The Teamsters. Oh my gosh.
That's good.
Okay, remember it's recorded. Give me some credit.
You're assuming your files will get uploaded, but yeah.
It's a big assumption.
Sarah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sarah,
True story.
To this day, can you walk into a Banana Republic, or is you not even going there anymore?
I've overcome.
Banana Republic.
I'm on a list.
Yeah, they have a big picture of it.
I don't go
this
there.
lady never showed up. Do not let her in.
Don't go there.
The entire Gap group won't allow me in, so I've been banned from all.
She's not even allowed in Old Navy.
Not even Old Navy. So mess me up for life, kids. Don't ever quit. Don't ever quit.
I can't do any of the umbrella companies.
None of them. So, it's been challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It comes back to haunt you.
That.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably a good wrap,
so.
Boys and girls.
It's like the one place where I'm okay with not having like the firm decision.
Right?
'Cause
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do think it's a very unique thing.
I agree.
Yeah, but I think yeah, we've generally established some of the
Of course. And
Yeah,
that's
for
why I
sure.
said you're
Of course.
welcome in the beginning.
we've
I
shared
knew.
some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome,
It's our
kids.
gift
Right.
to you.
Yes.
And with that, we play our
All right,
music.
kids.
Actually, long enough, though.
Cross your fingers that it all works this way.
All right. Music time. Wait.
Oh, I thought it was really playing. I was like, wow, you guys, like, I was like, there it is.
There goes my
Yeah.
camera. All right, I'm
Connie.
gonna stop the camera, and you guys did enough music. So okay, I fucking don't know. Bye.
Bye.